Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Happy Sunday. I hope you are having a beautiful day as we get going here. And so today is day two of the Purpose and Impact Bootcamp. And today, sorry, still admitting some people. Today we're really going to dive into looking at your unique life-changing experiences that have really led your life to where you are today, because those are going to be really key pieces in discovering your purpose so that you can create a future filled with meaning and contribution. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. And for those of you who don't know me yet, my name is Chantel Cox. I'm an author, a speaker, and a transformation neurocoach, as well as a certified life purpose coach. And I specialize in helping women connect with their unique purpose and permanently removing those blocks that have been holding them back so that they can step into their full potential and live an aligned and fulfilling life of impact. So I want to super celebrate that you are here today. Whether you are here with me live in the Zoom room, hello. If you are live with us on Facebook, hello to you as well. And if you are watching the replay, hello. No matter when or where you are watching it from, you are taking time, carving it out for yourself, showing up for yourself. If you want something different, you have to do something different. If you want the results of people who are successful, you have to do things of people that are successful. And could I be at Sunday Fun Day happy hour with friends right now? 100%. It's a beautiful sunny day. That sounds like a lot of fun. But I'm not, right? And neither are you. So welcome. We're going to really make your time today very impactful. So I want to kick off our time together today with celebrations. I really want to hear your wins, your insights, your aha moments. Like, what's coming up for you so far? Just go ahead and unmute and share anything that you feel you would like to share.
I got something to share. You were asking us yesterday about memories from our childhood, and trying to think of, childhood passions and interests. And this one particular memory has been coming up a lot for me lately. And I was in second grade and leading a bunch of kids to the side yard of our house. We were going to make the coolest underground house that anybody had ever seen. We were digging a tunnel in the ground and we were going to make this big cavern that I saw, in my mind. And I feel like part of the reason why that keeps surfacing as of late, and yesterday when you asked that question, it came back again, is that I didn't realize how much of my whole life, when I've looked and give myself time to review my story, is that I am a visionary. I see stuff and I want to make sure that I'm including. And when somebody doesn't see it or get it, I'm like, oh, it just breaks my heart. I want them to see this. So just that exercise is so good, looking at childhood passions and interests, or even just how did you play, right? How that was one of the ways that I played all the time. And I've always been a leader. My report cards said my report cards from grade school always said you're bossy and you talk too much. So I was hindered by, hearing that interpretation of it for a while, but I am a leader, and my report cards all show that from a negative stance, and then going and seeing this replay of me desiring to get these kids to see this big vision that I saw. So great exercise.
I love that, Jackie, that you were able to think of some of the characteristics that you naturally had as a kid. And this breaks my heart as a public educator, but it's just part of the culture that we've embedded in our education system up to this
Yeah.
point. I do sense a change and a shift in things, so that makes me happy. But when we were going to school, if you had leadership qualities and you were opinionated, they were maybe not documented and viewed as great skills that are going to set you up for life. And so then that created some limiting beliefs, and we learned how
Okay.
to play small.
Yep.
So I love that as an adult, you're leaning into that. Thank you so much for sharing.
Mhm. Thanks. That's good. Thank you.
Anyone else want to share anything? Oh, go ahead, Jean.
I'll go ahead. Hey, so I posted on Chantel's page that after we talked yesterday, the whole interest of mine of helping others through the natural state of what we can do best possible to heal our bodies. And a friend of mine that I've been recently talking with about this kind of stuff has osteoporosis, and I've had my own osteoporosis journey with DEXA scans, and I was able to improve my markers in that 3 out of 4 improved. And this friend just texted me actually just now, and she wanted me to share my supplements with her. So I took a picture, sent it, and then I offered, hey, I can help you look at your DEXA scan reading and help you understand it. Anyway, she wants to do that. So I'm like, that's just a passion of my life, helping others that way. And so, it just happened. She's like, because we work out at the same gym. And she's like, well, let's try to get together maybe after we work out tomorrow. So I think that's a win, celebration.
Yes, that's huge. Good job. So again, I know we touched on this yesterday. Jean, you are just really opening yourself up to some amazing things. And I had a chance to meet with some of you so far in your one-on-one vision impact calls. And something that came up yesterday afternoon was, and I didn't embed it in any of this content, so I want to kind of touch on it here because it makes sense. Our brains have what's called the reticulating activating system, the RAS, and what that means is we're constantly, there's so many sensory things going on around us. We would go like literally insane if our brain was bringing in all that to us and we were trying to process all that. So our brain has created filters, and so, whatever we are telling our brain that we're looking for and open to is what our brain, when it sees it, it goes, oh, hey, let that through the filter. They want to see that. They want to see that. They want to see that. And so, as you are beginning to go through these activities and think about what are my passions and interests? What are my skills and talents? And you're thinking that and you're like, oh man, this is coming back for me. I do enjoy this. I do know a lot about this. Then they're telling your brain, hey, I want more opportunities like this, like bring me more information about this. And so sometimes opportunities, people, things have been right in front of you the whole time, but your brain is now going to allow those connections to happen. So expect a lot of that this week as we're going through the boot camp. It's going to be pretty exciting. I wanted to touch on one more thing with that. Maybe it'll come back to me later. Okay, so anything else before we kind of get moving into the content? Okay, awesome. If something comes up for you later, remember, show up, take action, share, take action and share about it in the group. Any ahas, like it's also training our brain. When we do little celebrations and wins, it's giving us kind of that dopamine hit, and then we want more. And so then you're saying, okay, I did something and I celebrated it, right? So now I want to keep doing more things, so I keep getting that dopamine hit and I keep getting to celebrate it. So we want to train our brain to find the wins and keep celebrating, so we build that momentum and keep rolling. Okay, so in the Zoom chat, I dropped the workbook link, so you can go there. Day 2 is now added in there as well. Hopefully, as you start seeing the days, you kind of understand why I didn't just like bombard you with all 4 days at once. That way you can really kind of like focus on what day you're on. And anybody on Facebook, I have dropped the link if you want to come join us on Zoom. If you want to access the workbook or get additional supports, there is a link in the Facebook for you to do that. Just quick reminder that yay you've registered for a free virtual boot camp. Yay. That's huge. That's awesome. But registration alone does not get you results. Results come when you show up, you take action, and you share. So when you show up live or on the replay, you get a point. And if it's on the replay, put something in the comments so that I know you watched it. Because Facebook can tell me a lot of things, but it doesn't tell me that unless you somehow engage with the video. and take action. So do the action items and then share about it in the Facebook group. What came up for you? What was an insight? What was aha? What was a win around the action items? And then share with the people inside of your in the people in your world outside of the boot camp what you're doing, what your intentions are, what you're planning, because the more you talk about it, the more it's telling your brain, this is what I'm doing, this is okay, this is safe, so that it removes those blocks so you can keep doing it. And it also provides you a level of accountability. And each thing gets you a point. And at the end, we will do a third place, second place, and first place winners. Third place gets a copy of my book, and I'll sign it and mail it to you. Unless you're in Wichita, then I'll get it to you. um, and Yes, and then second place also gets the signed copy as well as a 30-minute one-on-one coaching call with me, and that will take place after the boot camp. So when you've had some time to process and you're kind of like, okay, what's next? And first place gets a full hour-long session with me as well as the book. So one last quick announcement. So it was um, sorry, it was brought to my attention that there was a technical glitch with the booking website. So I will be reaching out to each of you to either confirm the date and time that I have down for you or to see what would work for you, because there have been at least 2 calls that I did not have on my calendar that other people had signed up for. So I will be reaching out to everybody just to make sure that I have the correct information. If you have shown up to a call and I was not there, I really hope that didn't happen. But yes, if it did, my deepest apologies. Okay, so let's dive into today's content. Today, we're looking at your life path. That means, what are the life changing experiences that really tell the story of your life up to this point? And the goal is to really look back at everything that has happened for you. And that's a really important lens to see it through, that life happens for you, not to you. And we're going to do that in order to see why it all happened the way that it did. And when we look at our life on a timeline, we can start kind of piecing together, maybe figuring out where it's headed. So during our time together, I'm going to give you some helpful guidelines and tips and things to think about. And then your action item is going to be to spend time reflecting on what we covered by going through the activities laid out in the workbook. The activities today aren't necessarily a quick reflection question. It's much more in depth. So we're not going to necessarily pause during our time together for you to actually do the activity. You'll do that after. And during our time together today, I'll give you some things to maybe consider as you're doing them. So when you look in your workbook, the first activity is really just providing you some space to brain dump and just really make a list of any of the significant life-changing experiences or turning points from birth till now. Anything you can think of. It doesn't matter how big or small, what comes in your head, just brain dump it. Doesn't matter the order, and you can use the page, you can use the notebook paper, whatever works for you. Just start really kind of getting everything out. And this may be an activity that maybe you want to like set a timer, like I'm going to do this for 10 minutes, you do it, and then you go walk away. And then because your brain is still going to be processing, and then maybe you come back and look at it again and reread it, and more will come back. We're kind of dusting off, those files in our brain and bringing them back. And so when we're doing activities like this and looking at our past, I really want you to keep a few things in mind. So some of us have experienced painful and traumatic life experiences in our past that are going to come up as you're doing activities like this. And the intention of today's activity is not to start digging deep into those things or trying to process them or to heal. And so if something comes up for you that you thought maybe you had healed or you've not already worked through it with therapy, that might be a step that you want to consider outside of this boot camp. So the intention of the activity today is, however, to really look at what happened and try to begin to find the meaning in it and ask yourself how any potentially negative events have led to or maybe could lead to positive outcomes. We want to try to find the purpose in any pain that we've experienced. And depending on where you are on your journey, you may or may not have had the opportunity to heal some of those wounds. And you just might not be at a place where you're ready to do that yet. And that's okay. So you get to determine how deep you go into this activity. And I want you to approach it with grace and love. And so, kind of a light at the end of the tunnel is that oftentimes these most difficult life experiences end up being the biggest factors in determining your purpose. Now, this is not the case for everyone, but if you did have a traumatic experience in your life, you can ask yourself how you might use what happened to you in order to help others to do something meaningful in the world. So it could potentially be a way that you can make a difference in the world by simply being you and sharing things you've learned in the trenches of life. So, as you're going through the activity, today is not just about looking at your challenges and hardships, of course. It is also about finding the good experiences in your life that really light you up. And so this pairs really nicely with our content from yesterday because you already started your brain kind of remembering some of those things. And so as you remember things that used to really excite you and really made you feel alive at some point, if you're no longer doing those things, it might be a good time to look at bringing some of those activities back into your life. So that is kind of some guidelines and tips of how you're going to do that first activity in the workbook. You're just going to spend some time reflecting and brain dumping all the significant, like kind of life-changing experiences or turning points that you can remember. And again, you might want to come back to the list a couple of times. All right. So the next part of the action item that you're going to do is you're going to take that list and begin to summarize it by putting it in chronological order on a timeline. And I want you to also think about how that experience made you feel and how it impacted you. So, if you had something happen repeatedly in the same period of time, then you can kind of sum it up in one statement. So, for example, maybe if you moved several times from birth to age 16, you could sum up the experience by saying, I moved often, it made me feel very unstable, but how it impacted you, well, you learned how to make new friends pretty quickly. So, kind of thinking through not just the experience, the chronological order of when it kind of fell, but also how it made you feel and how it impacted your life. So there is a timeline that you are welcome to use in the workbook, or you may decide to do the activity on a piece of paper. As you are going through the activities, here are some helpful guidelines just as you kind of work through your timeline. So by looking at your life on a timeline, you can begin to see it more objectively. Okay, we talked in the masterclass about how you can name it and tame it in terms of emotions, that when you have an emotion inside, it bounces around and it gets bigger than it actually is, and it's hard to process or look at logically. You're looking at it very emotionally. So when you get it out, now it's in front of you. Now you can look at it objectively. Now you can look at it logically with your logical brain instead of just your emotional brain. So that's one of the purposes of the timeline activity, is getting it out, not just thinking in your head, well, this happened and then this happened, and get it out, right? So you can step back from it and begin to see it objectively. You're going to be looking for maybe noticing a pattern or a series of experiences that have kind of led you along towards where you are today. And understanding this, you may notice that your life has actually been leading you towards something. You're going to come at this activity as if you are watching a movie. So think about a time that maybe you watched a movie and you're watching the plot go along and you just somehow knew where it was leading. You knew what was going to happen before it actually happened in the movie. So today you're going to think of your life timeline in that same way. Very emotionally unattached and objective, right? So when it's a movie, the movie's over, you turn it off and you go do your next activity that you want to do. However it ends, it doesn't impact the rest of your life. You're very emotionally unattached from it. So try to do that as much as possible with your timeline activity. Because if you can objectively observe the plot of the story, you may be able to begin to see where it's going. Also, this activity is definitely going to bring to light some of those automated thoughts and limiting beliefs that you get the opportunity to notice and write down this week, right? And remember, just noticing, just writing down. We're not proving, disproving. It's not good, bad, not true, false. It just is. We're just noticing and writing them down. Once you feel that your timeline is pretty complete, you've got kind of a good sense of what's going on. And remember, I said pretty complete. You're not going to get it to be perfect. You're not turning it into anybody. Nobody's grading it. I may be a teacher, but I don't have any red pens or gold stars. So sorry about your luck. So this is just for you, and you can come back to it time and time again. This may be something that you come back to throughout our time together in the boot camp. It might be something you dust off every like 30 days or so and just see and kind of recalibrate. Where have you been and where do you want to go? Okay, so once it's kind of in a workable place, then you can move into the next part of the action items and start reflecting on the work you've done so far through some guiding questions that are laid out in your workbook. So you're going to look back over everything objectively and identify what your turning points were. What were those big pivotal moments for you in your life? Then you're going to look back for any patterns in your life. So anything that kind of seems to repeat or maybe keeps coming up, because those patterns might be highlighting something that's a core theme of your life. Or perhaps it's showing you an opportunity to learn a lesson so that you can stop repeating the same pattern. Then you will have an opportunity to reflect on what lessons that you have been taught through these experiences. So Jean, your example earlier, you went through a health scare. You learned a lot because of something you personally were struggling with in a health related manner, and now it taught you lessons and you bettered yourself, and now you can use that knowledge to help others. So you'll be looking for any silver linings or positive outcomes from anything negative that you may have experienced, and you'll start to begin to see kind of what has your life been heavily focused on. So really kind of thinking back to our movie analogy, like if you're the star of your own movie, what does it look like you've been in training for, right? Think of like the old Rocky movies, the whole movie he's training for this one fight at the end. Like what have you been training for? Okay. So sometimes when you're looking back over your timeline, you'll see that there were coincidences in your life that actually ended up making pretty big impacts. So maybe something as simple as accepting a last-minute invite to an event you didn't even know was going to happen. Maybe when you went there, you ended up meeting someone who's now very significant in your life in some way. So you'll also look back through all your experiences and look for anything in your life that occurred that kind of fit into the following descriptions. Like if I hadn't blank, then blank would have never happened. Or I can see how blank happening helped prepare me for blank. So looking at events through this lens, it can really help us begin to discover where our path is leading us. So your unique experiences up to this point in your life have brought you to where you are today, to this perfect place, this launching point, where you are now perfectly poised to continue forward in the direction of everything that you want. As long as you keep looking forward, finding appreciation in the moment, and are not living in the past, right? So the purpose of this bootcamp is to help you find out where you want to go. And by looking back at your life, you can see that even in times when it felt like you were in the wrong place, or maybe you were, just kind of lost for a moment, that actually you were on your path all along. Okay. So I've provided a lot of information and things to think about that you'll process on your own during your action items. Anybody have any questions about any of those things, or yeah, anything that seemed unclear? Okay. So your action items today are, you're going to continue noticing and writing down, your automated thoughts. And you're going to go back and watch any content that you may have missed. We had the masterclass day 1, and now this is day 2. Or if you just want to go back and review anything, go ahead, and it's there available for you throughout the boot camp, and will remain accessible a couple days after the boot camp for anybody who kind of needs to catch up a little bit. You're going to spend some time reflecting on the activity in the workbook, and then share an insight of some sort in the Facebook group. So at this point, we've covered our content, we've given the action items. Tomorrow is day 3, unique purpose. We are going to literally begin to put some of these puzzle pieces together. And we're going to reflect on the meaning and the mission of your life so that you can evaluate how to best utilize your full potential and fulfill your purpose. So that will be going down in Zoom and streamed in the Facebook group, Create a Life You Love community, at 6 p.m. Central Time. Not at the same time we've been meeting. I am a full-time educator. At 1:30 tomorrow, I will be working, as will many of you. So we will meet in the evening. And if you're watching on Facebook and have not already done so, you are still welcome to register, so you have access to the workbook, the schedule, the Zoom links, announcements, prizes, additional supports, and then you can join us tomorrow as well. So that leads us to our next phase. Yesterday's connection and discussion activity was absolutely magical, and I'm so glad that so many of you are back here with us today, so that we can kind of do a repeat. So I encourage everybody that is watching the replay to reflect on the question I'm going to share as well. However, once I share it, I will be ending the live stream and the recording to allow the live participants to feel more comfortable with anything that they'd like to share. And so let's review a few of the guidelines of the bootcamp interactions, whether that's in Zoom or the Facebook group. Number 1, what happens in bootcamp stays in bootcamp. Number 2, you always have the right to pass. And number 3, there are no right or wrong answers. Okay, so whether you are in Zoom watching the replay, in Facebook watching live, got too many things going on. Okay. You are going to reflect and answer on the question that I'm about to ask. And today's question is designed to help address the very real struggle of feeling overwhelmed during a boot camp like this. So you are taking in a ton of information, and then you're going and digging deep in your own reflection time. And oftentimes we end up with so many ideas of what we could do and directions that we could go, that then we get stuck and we end up doing nothing, right? And so today's discussion topic is going to help you begin to prioritize that. So once I share it, because it's kind of a heavy question, I'm going to end the live stream and the recording pretty quickly, so that we can move into our connection to discussion question. So before I do that, I just want to do a quick reminder. Tomorrow's session, 6 p.m. tomorrow. Remember to show up, take action, and share. Okay. You guys ready for the question? And those of you on Zoom, I'm going to say it, and then you'll have a few minutes to start reflecting as I end the recording and the live stream and everything, and then we'll go into our discussion and connection time. So the question is, what would you do if you had just 1 year left to live? So 1 year from now, whatever you have experienced, whatever you have accomplished, whoever you have impacted up to that moment in time, that's it. That's the only time you have. So whatever you choose to do with your remaining time needs to be very intentional and focused. Okay, I'm going to end the Facebook and the live